If you've been paying attention to the news lately, you know that the US has been having a severe heat wave in Northern California and the Northwest and a few other areas. I just got back from a trip to Oregon. We drove up and drove back, spent the 4th of July weekend and a few more days. We had the idea that we get out of the middle of the Southern California heat and enjoy the slightly cooler air. Yeah, so that plan failed. It was about 80 degrees here in Los Angeles, and in some of the areas that we were, it hit about 115 degrees Fahrenheit. A number of people have died already from this most recent heat wave, and it's just the beginning of the summer. If you're an outside exerciser, or if you're constantly traveling and use the outdoors to work out, you don't have to stop everything if it gets warmer. But you do have to make some accommodations for the heat, and those accommodations will depend on you and what your body needs. And how long it takes to get used to the heat depends on your fitness level and some other things. I'd like to share with you what there is to know and to look out for when it comes to working out in the heat, because things can come on pretty quickly, and if we don't know what to look out for, we can get into a little trouble. This is Lucy Gable, integrative leadership coach and trainer, author, speaker, and professor at the George Washington University School of Medicine grad program. And this is Leadership, Life, Health, and Happiness. If you're like me, you want to exercise consistently. My husband and I tend to run for exercise when we go traveling. It's convenient. All we have to do is put shoes on and get out the door. Some places in the Pacific Northwest that we were visiting got up to 115 degrees during the day. Did we not run? No. We just got out the door earlier in the morning before the heat really hit. Was it super cool? No, it was in the 80s, got up to 90s by the time we were done running. But my husband and I are used to putting our bodies through some pretty serious work when we exercise. So when it comes to adapting to the heat, it's not as difficult for us as it could be for people who aren't exercising regularly, or people who don't exercise as intensely as we do. So it really depends on what you're used to and how much you've trained your body in terms of how resilient you'll be in the heat. And how long it takes to get used to the heat depends on your fitness level and some other things. For us, it's a few days. We get to a hotter climate, and within a few days of running, it'll kind of feel normal for us. But what's important for you to know is when it first gets hot and on your first days out in the heat, you've got to bring your exercise intensity down a few notches to let your body get used to it. And you know, I'm saying this because I frequently forget it. As many years as I've been running outdoors, in the first few days of summer, we'll go out or maybe we'll be in another environment in the summer and it'll be more humid as well as more hot. And I'll be having a hard time keeping my speed, or I'll be feeling super sluggish and I'll be thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I go faster? Why is it feeling hard to breathe? And then I realize, oh, it's hotter now. That's what's going on. And the important thing is that when you recognize that there's a change in climate, you don't push yourself to do what you have been doing up until then. There's heat, humidity, and even cold is another climate factor that you need to get your body used to. So basically, all weather changes are something to pay attention to when you're exercising. So when we know that it's going to be a different climate, we need to prepare the body for the change as well. Of course, what we're wearing needs to change. That makes sense, right? And of course, it means less clothes in the summer, but in the summer, it also means some sunscreen to protect your skin. It means a hat to keep yourself a little cooler. And when you're exercising in the heat, it's a good idea to try to be around shade. So if you're running, for example, like when we were running this last week, we went to the shady, tree-lined areas of the streets. We tried not to be out where the sun was just beating down on us, because that's gonna lead to us getting hotter, faster, reducing our ability to cool ourselves down and reducing the amount of time we can exercise. So let's talk a little bit about sweat. We're supposed to sweat when we're exercising. Sweat is the body's way of cooling us down. So if we're not sweating, it could mean that the air is wicking the sweat off of you because it could be dry heat. Or it could be that you haven't drank enough water and you're not able to sweat. So you're not putting water out from your skin and you're not cooling yourself down. So that's the third thing I want you to pay attention to. Hydration doesn't start just during the workout or right before. It really starts in the hours before you go outside. So if you're going out in the morning, you want to make sure you hydrate well the day before and even take a couple sips, a few ounces of water in the morning before you head out the door. If you're working out in the evening, you want to think about your hydration all day and get your muscles and cells full of water so when you go out, you've got a good starting point. And it also might mean for you that you want to bring out water, especially if you don't bring it with you on a normal basis. And it depends on how much time you're going for when you're out there. 30 to 45 minutes of playing in the heat is recommended that you have some kind of water replenishment ready for you. And you also have to know your body. Personally, I know that if I'm out for 45 minutes of a run, I don't need water if I'm hydrated well already. In my book, Eat to Lead, I did discuss water and how much water we typically need. Current research finds about 8 cups of water per day for women and 13 cups of water per day for men is a good general rule of thumb. And yes, if you're a little bit below or above that, that's fine, but you don't have to force feed yourself water. But we do need to make sure we're hydrated. It makes a difference. Current research also shows that water makes up about 80% of the living human brain. And we've also found that even mild dehydration can reduce your ability to think with speed and accuracy, reduce your attention span and alertness, cause headaches and brain fog, and affect your mood. Water is a primary nutrient. We kind of forget that. We definitely need to have water every day. Over time, long-term dehydration can cause parts of the brain to get thinner and lose volume. And also everything else in our body works well when we're well hydrated. Water makes up a large part of our blood and our circulation is better when we're well hydrated. That's why we feel better, we move easily. And I talk about in the book how we can use water to keep ourselves going strong throughout the day and also lower our needs for caffeine. And by the way, did you hear that Eat to Lead, my award-winning book, is going to be the subject of a Johns Hopkins course next fall? And the book, of course, will be the text. Now, you might not be able to take the course at Johns Hopkins, but you might be ready to read the book. And you can find Eat to Lead at eat2lead.com. And sure, I understand that you might not want to invest in reading a whole book until you know more about it. So I have a special gift for you on the book webpage. It's called The Executive's Edge: Unlocking Leadership Energy and Clarity Through Food. And this is the comprehensive guide in terms of how we get energy for our brain and body through food and things you have to look at in order to optimize getting that energy. So you can head over there to eat2lead.com and download the excerpt, and I even have a worksheet for you if you want to get started immediately amping up your performance. The next point for you is, even when it's hot outside, you've got to warm up. Just because you walk out and it's hot doesn't mean that you're warm as soon as you start. A warm-up causes your body to push more blood to the muscles that are going to be exercising. So the muscles get more fuel, more oxygen, more lubrication, basically. So before you jump out for any kind of exercise in the heat, you could warm up inside, or you could do your normal warm up outside, but just don't skip it. It'll actually make your exercise session even harder, and it'll possibly even cause you to pull something. I actually had something like this happen to me in a hot yoga class one time. I actually do not promote hot yoga, but this class was great. I loved it. It was very convenient, right in the middle of DC where I needed it to be. And the instructor didn't think we needed to warm up. And they started pushing us right into some really serious moves. And I tore my chest and shoulder muscle. Yeah, that's not an easy thing to do. And it wasn't like I was lifting heavy weights, doing heavy chest press or anything like that. I was just simply doing a yoga move, plank with a twist, and I felt it pull. And that took me back from exercising for a good 6 months or more. So we really want to have high quality in our exercise preparations, in our care of our bodies before, during, and after exercise. And the heat is just going to add a little more to what you have to think about before you get out there. And the last thing is you need to know the signs of heat exhaustion. And with long periods of exercise, if you're not hydrated enough, if you're in the heat, you can get heat exhaustion suddenly, or it can progress over time. There are a number of signs of heat exhaustion. You don't need to have all of them. You could just get one. But if some weird things start going on with your body, you understand that that's probably what it is. So different signs could be feeling faint, feeling dizzy, unusually tired, having a weak but fast pulse, muscle cramps, feeling nauseated, and feeling like you're getting a headache. What do we do if we think we have heat exhaustion? Slow down your activity. If it's something like nausea, headache, dizziness, it's time to bring your activity to a close. Move to a cooler place. Make sure you get hydrated. Drink water or drink sports drinks, something with some electrolytes so you can replenish, because we lose that when we sweat. Heat stroke is the next level. That's when your body is overheating and you've been exposed to the sun or to heat for a prolonged period of time. And it gets worse if you don't do anything about it. And the reason why heat stroke is serious is because if you have heat stroke, it can damage your brain, your heart, your kidneys, and your muscles. And as we've already found out in these last few weeks of high heat in certain areas of the country, there are always people who perish because of heat stroke. So it's not something to take lightly. And the symptoms of heat stroke are high body temperature, 104 or higher. But if you don't have a thermometer, you might notice someone's not acting the same as usual. They have different kind of mental state or behavior, maybe confusion, agitation, slurred speech. They might be irritable. They might be a little disoriented. And even seizures and coma can result from heat stroke. You might also feel nausea. You might vomit. Your breathing might become rapid and shallow, and your heart rate will go up higher than normal. You might start to have a throbbing headache. And when you have heat stroke, your skin feels hot and dry. If you think you're having heat stroke, you're supposed to call a doctor or get medical help because of the seriousness of the issue. But when your body is overheating, basically what to do first is get cooled down, get into the shade, get indoors, you remove excess clothing, you get into a cool shower or a cool tub of water. You can even use ice packs to cool someone down, and also start hydrating. As I mentioned earlier, there are precautions you can take, a little change in your exercise plan, a little change in the time of day. Absolutely stay out of the heat in the middle of the day, and know the signs and symptoms so you can stay away from any danger. You could be someone who works outside, does physical labor, or you can just be out in the park enjoying a nice day with your family. But heat stroke and heat exhaustion happens in all kinds of situations, so it's best to be aware and stay safe. If you like this episode, click like, share it with someone if you think they might like it, and let me know what you'd like to talk about next or what this made you think about. I love hearing from listeners, and I want to hear from you. This is Lucy Gable. Talk to you next time.